Alright everyone, now we've got to talk about something very funny. It reveals the hypocrisy of the DC neoliberals, by the way. Rosemontoya and some other trans individuals were attending a Pride event personally invited by the White House. So come, we're going to do a meet and greet with Joe Biden. He loves transgendered people so much. He loves LGBTQ plus MAP, especially the MAP allegedly, etc. He's on your side. Despite being an 80-year-old white dude who previously pushed for essentially educational segregation, tough on crime measures and everything else, and by the way, the Defense of Marriage Act from years ago, asserting that marriage was only between one man and one woman in the United States doctrine, he loves it now. He did a 180 at some point around 1999 when the polls began to shift and the Democratic Party followed suit, realizing that id poll was lucrative, and all of a sudden he loved you. He loves seeing trans titties and stuff like that. But he doesn't want to see them at the White House. And so when Rosemontoya and a friend of his, hers, Zers, whatever, who cares, were literally taking their shirts off and shaking their transgendered titties on the White House lawn for a TikTok video, Joe Biden didn't respond too well to that. You see, it's out of sight, out of mind when it's being done to 12-year-olds at a strip club. Because Biden doesn't follow Andy Ngo's page or something like that. He's oblivious to the fact that it even happens, probably thinks this is a one-off. When you shake your tits in front of the president and you're not Marilyn Monroe and it's not the 1960s, you probably get in trouble for that. I'm just finding it one of the most hilarious news bits that I've ever seen, because the same Democratic Party and the same Democratic administration at the White House, of course Biden's stewardship, that has promoted this kind of behavior, all of a sudden condemns it when it happens at a White House function. It's sort of like their views on crime. Crime in Portland? That's perfectly fine. Crime in Seattle? That's all right. Crime in San Francisco, New York City, Chicago, LA, etc.? Those things are fine. Deal with it. You know, we're trying to do police reform. We need to hashtag defund the police. You remember how long the Democrats went with that line before finally realizing that they were fucking themselves with that particular branding? And said, no, I don't want to defund. I just want to reform the police. Reform them is a very, very loose term considering their plethora of plans. Social workers will go to violent crime calls instead of actual officers, meaning that the disarmed public in some of those states will be even more helpless and preyed upon by lifelong criminals that have no respect for human life because they don't even like themselves. It made a whole lot of sense. Anyway, we see the same hypocrisy. If you have so much as somebody, walking around in front of the White House with a knife, all of a sudden they'd be screaming about MAGA terrorism. But if it happens in Portland and you have, a bunch of people rioting and burning cars, that's okay, that's normal. The same thing is going for the LGBTQ plus MAP IOU 123 thing in the United States, which, by the way, is an id poll that is astonishingly absent here. Now, I was under the impression, supposedly, that the Netherlands was a far-left, extremely woke country, and yet the biggest news that I see is that a bunch of farmers formed a political party to stop farm buyouts for the WEF, and they ended up with the number one party in the Congression of the Parliament here. So I'm calling bullshit. When I get back to the United States, I expect all sorts of weird shit to go on. Of course, I come from a weird town anyway. Rutland's not exactly the Ritz, so it'd be par for the course. Rednecks fighting with transgendered people over which kind of beer was more polite to drink in public. Is it Pabst or Budweiser? We're not sure. That'd be hilarious. Anyway, I just find this hilarious. The hypocrisy involved. And now we see if Biden, by the way, ends up getting called out by some left-wing advocates. Well, why are you slut-shaming Rosemontoya? Titties, and by the way, technically speaking, these are biologically male titties, so going shirtless for a man in public, unless he wanders into a store or something, or he's tweaking his nipples on the playground and happens not to be transgender, then it's okay, I guess. Won't get in trouble. And go to the beach. What do you see? Dudes wearing shirts or dudes not wearing shirts? Well, and some beaches, the women aren't wearing shirts. By the way, your fantasies about that are probably mislaid because most of them are either too young or too old. So Yeah, that 70-year-old grandma over there is looking really nice in the sun. You get drunk enough, and some people have a problem, I suppose. Many such sailor stories. Biden's Pride event is a symbol, in my opinion, of his administration. It's a symbol of the hypocrisy and NIMBYism of liberals in general. The transgendered person acting in a deliberately sexual and provocative manner around 10-year-olds, at a strip club or something like that, or even in public if it's at a parade or something, is considered objectively allowed, objectively blessed. It's not condemned, it's actually blessed. It's promoted behavior. You're supposed to do that. Just the other day, a couple of days ago, I can't remember which one person was posting it, there was another transgendered individual with their tits out following somebody that was following a pride parade around on the side of the parade. Did the Biden White House come out and condemn that? There were kids in that crowd. Were there kids, by the way, at this Pride event? I didn't check deeply enough into it. The Biden White House loves to bring forth influencers. These are some of the influencers that Biden is, if not paying, at least giving all sorts of kickoff deals to in order to promote the DNC. Biden, his campaign has openly admitted to the fact that they're doing this. They're buying off influencers by saying, well, we're going to give you access to early news info, and we'll give you free trips to the White House, etc., etc. You'll be able to expose yourself, apparently in multiple ways, if you sign on to this. We can't give you a monetary compensation, although the DNC has been known to do that with Harry Sisson and others, to give them money to promote, neoliberalism. The reason they're doing this, especially with younger people, is because Biden is, again, an 80-year-old white straight dude. Clearly he doesn't like male titties being shaken on the White House lawn when he's there. He's straight, white, and male. The only way that you can get the id-poll youth left to vote for him, therefore, is to literally pay off all of the bullshitters that they're listening to. And by the way, I hate to tell you younger people, there was a glowing moment when the youth in the world on the internet had access to organic talent. That was us millennials. Like 10 years ago when we were still the youngest voting generation, most of the content was organic, let alone 15 years ago, it was all organic. The idea of contracted work other than from, talent firms or companies or something, the idea of a government getting involved was almost completely absent, state propaganda, of course, aside. Now more than half of all of your Gen Z creators, the TikTokers, YouTubers, Instagram influencers, whatever the fuck they have to be, they're astroturfed. What's been done on these sites is that they've tried to shove everyone else aside and algorithmically demote them in order to promote people that are working with groups like the DNC, because that's the only way that they can make them seem palatable to a younger audience. That's quite literally what they're doing. They do it with woke corporations too. Who do you think's funding it? You think you think the DNC has the money to fund that many influencers and that many trips to the White House? They've been almost broke in the last few years several times. No, it's the ESG corporations and all of the wonderful money kickbacks that they get. Government likes to give them nepotistic grants, by the way, with taxpayer money that then get immediately funneled right back into the political system. By the way, I want people to listen to that. Isn't it interesting that corporations that conform to a government-sponsored wokeness model and therefore get grant support and investment from groups that have grants from the government, isn't it funny that they're still allowed to donate to political campaigns? Corporations are people. They happen to be among the nastiest of them. So yeah, Biden's Pride event. It made America proud. Seeing trans titties shaking around and then Biden pretending that he's offended by it. He probably would have mistaken Rosemontoya for a woman. He would have bent in for a sniff. That would have been funnier too. That's about all. Peace out.